What you doing, readers? I'm DAC. I'm going to be talking about the book Final Hope, both volumes 1 and 2 by Joshua J. Piedra. Now, I've already read his other series, Dragonfly. This book actually comes before that. He wrote these first. There's actually some references to Dragonfly throughout this, so it was great to read. Even though he wrote these first, and I read the other one first, it was a cool thing to do. So, what this book actually is about is a guy named Mikomi Saigo. He inherits his dad's tech company called Onyx Technology Ventures, but right when there's a big announcement, he's killed. Then he's sent back in time by a custodian of time named Sebastian in order to figure out who his murderer was. And while he's doing that, Mikomi decides he's going to try to fix other things while he's there. And he has the chance to make his life better. Now, yeah, just the summary of it itself, it probably sounds really similar to the anime called Erased. Loved it, watched it whenever it first came out. The similarities stop at that summary though. The main premise is completely different. Besides the fact that he goes back in time after being killed to figure out who did it, that's about it. That's about as similar as it gets. Even the author JJ, he's aware of this. When he really started working on it, was right before Erase came out. But there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. We talk a lot about it on my podcast when I had him on there, What You Doing podcast. So if you want to see more of us talking about this and Dragonfly, check out my podcast. But for now, I'm mainly just going to talk about all the great things that are in this book like usual. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of spoilerly stuff, so if you haven't read it yet, you've been warned. Read it, then watch this, or do whatever you want. So, first off, you may notice the first book is noticeably larger than the second. Of course, this is another thing we've talked about in my podcast, but it's because as a light novel, they usually are shorter than the first one is, and he realized that too late. He got, I guess, carried away. But it's fine. Honestly, this whole series, the 2 books, could just been one big book. It's a complete story, it has everything it needs. But like I said, it's going for, it's an original English light novel, so typically they're shorter. He did that. It's fine. I don't really think you have to stick to any kind of restrictions for what kind of book should be, but no, it's cool and it is fine. But the last one also contains a lot of extra stuff, which I'll talk about later. So yeah, one complete story. The fact that it's in 2 volumes, I guess it's just there is a big moment at the end of the first one that it makes sense to break it up into 2. But like I said, one big book would make sense too. Like I said, it's just one story. But so when Mikomi goes back, he goes back to his teenage years, still in high school. His main point was to find his killer, but immediately he realizes things are going to change. And that's because Sebastian's like, this is a different timeline. There's going to be some little tweaks and stuff that are going to be different. But Mikomi kind of just decides, screw the small stuff. Let's change all the big devastating moments in his life. One being his high school girlfriend, Sarah. She, in the original timeline, they dated a while, but they were kind of outcast throughout high school because of it. She was always felt lonely. She always was afraid that she was going to end up alone again. Then, when they finally graduate, she finds out her parents are dead and kills herself. Well, new timeline, they still kind of the same thing. She's an outcast, but Mikomi still goes out with her. They go out for a while. There's a lot of time jumping in this. I guess skip all the boring stuff where everything's going well. And it does seem like everything is going really well. The first book pretty much is, really positive, really hopeful. It's Mikomi figuring everything out. until after he finally thinks he saved her. Her parents were already dead thanks to Sebastian, who tweaked some stuff. So she was already used to that feeling of not losing her parents. And then because McCombie's kind of, more gentle with her, more aware of her, and also because of his friend Ryan, also didn't just betray him and leave him. So there's all this other stuff that's keeping her alive, and he's really hopeful, proud that he's finally did it. He's able to save her life. Same night she died in the original timeline, she gets hit on a car in this timeline and dies. And that's where the first book ends. It's just a really uphill, positive, everything seems to be going great. And then it's just it literally crashes. And then that's it. Then, the only other positive thing is he saves his friendship with his friend Ron, which, goes throughout both volumes, and he's not really sure if this is an important thing or not. I mean, Ryan never dies, he just pretty much stops being his friend, so he's aware of the fact that it's not as an important thing, but he still wants to do it. He still wants to be friends with him, so he keeps that. The second book, though, he finally goes off to college. He's almost about to give up, but then he gets a renewed sense. Things around par, kind of. To save his dad. So his dad in the original timeline pretty much just died from exhaustion. I mean, it's heart problems, stuff like that, but he pretty much worked himself to death. And he's aware of this. So in this timeline, about a year before he's supposed to die, he has his dad go get a checkup. And they catch something, they're able to fix it. Once again, Mikomi is relieved. He's like, he did. This time it should stick. There's no health problems, but he's still skeptical if something might happen. Then, eventually, not going to get to the end too yet about who did it, but for some reason, he thinks his dad commits suicide. He jumps off some cliff, saying it's ruled suicide because it looked like nobody else was there. He pretty much just loses it. He pretty much gives up all hope on all of this, and he gets the rest of college. He does eventually make a friend named Derek who sticks with him all 4 years. Eventually gets a job too. Ryan got a job at the company, and then we finally kind of get to the end. He finally starts working at his company, took over his dad. Been some more time, and then it's the day he was supposed to die. And turns out this whole time, McCombie's been thinking maybe it was Ryan, maybe him losing his friendship, maybe wanting him to have revenge against him. And then once he starts running the company, he realizes that Ryan was fired. So this is still another motive. Turns out it's not. It was Sebastian the whole time. Now, there are instances throughout both books that it makes you suspicious of Sebastian. You see him kind of in the background once the car hits Sarah. Of course, we know he's the one that throws off Ryunosuke. And I mean, he doesn't really seem to do anything to Ryan that we know of. But this whole time, he's been talking about how things have to still balance out. And we think maybe that's why he's doing this. It's harsh, but, keep the timeline balanced out. Anything that changes has to be unchanged in some way. And throughout this, that kind of excuse, it puts up a good mystery, everything. I didn't even expect it to be Sebastian. I didn't connect the dots. I was buying into this. He's just making sure everything's rebalanced. And yeah, it's harsh, but it seemed necessary, kind of. But then, as great as this thing is, it's also great how some things just don't add up, and it's on purpose. He says in one part it was a mistake, like originally Miss Comey's dad dies at a different year, but then that's just ended up actually be Sebastian playing with his mind. He just took the mistake and ran with it, and it's stuff like that, stuff not adding up that makes it, I guess, a foreshadow of sorts to it being Sebastian. Stuff like, and there's a bunch of little changes. Like his dad's original assistant was supposed to be Janice, and then Alice, but then Alice is brought in sooner. There was a whole thing with a mafia pressuring his dad, and the mafia just gets wiped out. And it's like, okay, how can you make this big change and it be okay? Then there's other stuff like Ryan was never supposed to stay his friend or work for his company, and then he was never supposed to meet Derek, and he was also supposed to not work for the company. And then there's the overall question of like, if Sebastian is really this focused on, you know, keeping everything balanced and changes not affecting stuff too much, why did he make this big change for Mikomi in the first place? Why did he send him back in time? Well, we finally get the answer. Sebastian was just messing with him. Sebastian, as a custodian of time, doing this for who knows how long, just got bored and decided to mess with Mikomi. Apparently he's done it to other people. And that's it. It's kind of like a petty thing. It's just boredom. And of course, Mikomi loses it at this too. We see in the book, we're going to get to the endings in a bit. Yeah, this whole thing, it's great how it doesn't add up because it's not supposed to. And it was a really great way to make this mystery of who did it really work out in a way that you might be able to realize it was Sebastian, but to know why, there wasn't a reason why. And it's great. It's a great thing. Maybe it was supposed to be something phenomenal or like really make you think, but the fact that it was just for really no reason, it really speaks to this antagonist and being a bad guy kind of thing. Yeah, it's great to have a antagonist with a backstory that makes it justify why he's doing it, but something that actually makes a bad guy is the fact that he's just doing it for no reason. And that's why it really works well with Sebastian and all this stuff. Now, the actual ending, there's of course a main ending, but there's also two alternative endings and then another kind of alternative ending. So what happens is in the main ending, there's another custodian in time, Kaliel, I don't know how to say his name. He shows up. Eventually, Mikomi's actually able to kill Sebastian because Kaliel takes his powers away. And then he kills himself, but then Kaliel gives him an option to also be a custodian of time. And he's like, cool. And then he goes back. There's a moment of where he goes, Sarah still dies, but then he kind of, I guess, brings her back to life and then introduces himself as a custodian. Cool moment. Now, what aggravates me the most about having alternate endings is the fact that they all work as an ending so well. I'm still only maybe 33% sure the ending I just told you is the actual ending and not one of the alternative endings. But the other two endings, one has him, it still kind of plays out, but ultimately Mikomi gets sent back in time again because Kaliel kind of feels sorry for him and will let him go back, do everything again for a third time. And then the third, or I guess the second alternate ending is he does all this, he lets everything still stay the same. Everyone's, or Alice and Mikomi are still alive, but for some reason Kaliel resets his memory back to the original timeline, which still keeps him in this one. That one was kind of a weird ending. It still works. I was expecting an ending, if anything, that he just got him sent back to his original timeline. Didn't get killed, but everything still ended up happening. I guess maybe that's not how timelines work, but that's what happened in this one. Now, cool. Like I said, those endings, they worked so well. I kept getting confused of which was the actual one. Man, it makes sense because they're different timelines. All three of these endings actually could have happened, and it's just different timelines. There could be multiple Mikomis doing the same thing, but then that would mean there's multiple Sebastians, or maybe Sebastian is just messing with multiple Mikomis. There's a whole lot. When you get into alternate realities and timelines and stuff like that, stuff gets weird like that. Now, besides just the story stuff and these alternate endings, of course, there's a lot of little extra bonuses at the end of this, which is one of the things I love about these books, about A.R. Dragonfly, is just the extra stuff. I love extra stuff at the end of books. It's just another way for you to really get invested in the stories, even after you finish them. So, he includes fun facts for it, all kinds of stuff. And then, the coolest part, and weirdest to me, was he includes outtakes. And they're funny, but I've never seen a book do outtakes before. And they're all really good and amusing. I just didn't expect it. And then this is where the other alternate ending comes in, and it's just just a whole meta thing, just something funny that they end up just making fun of. Well, I guess he ends up making fun of himself as an author, but whatever. It's really cool and amusing, and I just love extra stuff at the end. Now, last thing, I mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of AR Dragonfly references. Of course, these came first. Almost because I read AR Dragonfly first, it could almost seem to me that he wrote these and then he wrote AR Dragonfly first and then wrote these and just plugged them in there. It was the opposite way. One of the cool things about that is he even talks about how he was planning in like the fun facts or the extra stuff at the end. He was talking about how he was planning to write AR Dragonfly. So it's cool to see him talking about planning that in here and then knowing that series is already done. It's a really cool thing to see. It's kind of like just a memory in a book that you got to write. So a lot of cool references and stuff like that. A cool series overall. Almost a shame it was only 2 volumes, but you don't really need any more. It is a complete and great story on its own. So yeah, that's it. Let me know if you have also read Final Hope, if you read AR Dragonfly. I'm looking forward to everything else he's written. Of course, if you want to see more, I've made videos for all the AR Dragonfly books. And then, of course, check out my podcast if you want to see me talk to him about all his books and all other things he's planning. But yeah, let me know whatever you're thinking, whatever you read, anything you want to talk about, really. But if you like what I have to say, go and like the video. You want to see me talk more about other things I'm reading, go and subscribe to my channel. You can see when I do all that. But until next time, I'm the AC. Thank you for watching, and bye.